Detectives hitting a dead end less than a year after a young woman was shot and killed in an encampment in North Austin. This is Unsolved. .911 calls coming in late one April night reported a shooting in the woods off Runberg Lane. When officers arrived, they found a woman on the sidewalk near a car wash in the area, unresponsive. She was later identified as 20-year-old Gabrielle Williams. As we approach 1 year since that night, Austin police detectives say they're asking for help from the public for a break in this case. Joining me today are detectives Randy DeLuna and Billy Pina. Welcome and welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So begin for me with what happened that night, April 25th, when patrol officers arrived responding to those 911 calls.
When patrol officers had arrived, they noticed Miss Williams was on the sidewalk. She had multiple gunshot wounds. It was later determined that Miss Williams had been carried from her encampment in the woods by her boyfriend to East Runberg Lane, to where they were able to flag down police officers.
What is that like when you're working a bit backwards, when the victim is found somewhere else away from the location where they were actually shot or injured?
Well, it wasn't too far away from where we actually found Miss Williams. So luckily we did have witnesses that were able to direct us to where the encampment was. And then we were able to retrace all the steps as far as everything that happened before.
So tell us a bit about that. What happened leading up to the moment those shots were fired?
Well, the best that we could tell is that Miss Williams and her boyfriend were in their tent in the encampment. There were some dogs barking out there, I think, from another camp, and Miss Williams kind of got up to go check out what the noise was all about. And as best as we could tell, that's when the gunfire erupted, and she was struck. It's probably about 200-300 yards off the roadway, so it's really kind of a hidden area, not a lot of foot traffic unless you happen to live there or be there, and very dark, very dark.
Talk through what witnesses, folks in that area had to say. I imagine that's scary for the group of people who were living in this encampment.
It can be, people are pretty vulnerable in those encampments to begin with. And when you have an event like this that occurs and a suspect still out on the loose, it can be very, very not just traumatizing from the event, but scary because you're not sure if that's going to happen again, if that person's going to return. If we don't have a motive or a reason, then we don't know why they did it. It could just be a random attack. It can be very problematic.
Is that how you would characterize Miss Williams' death, a random attack?
We don't know of any reason at this time. Just speaking with people that lived there and people that knew her, this kind of seemed like this was random.
Talk more about who Gabrielle was, what kind of person she was.
In speaking to family and a lot of friends that we've made contact with, everyone had nothing but positive things to say about Gabrielle. She was loved and she was cared for by many, many people, and so many people were sad to see her death.
You've mentioned in our conversations about family. Is there any message you can pass along about family? I imagine they're just heartbroken about not only this happening, but still not having any answers.
We've been in contact with the family, and I think with any case that we have, the family wants answers. We want to be able to provide some sort of closure for the family so they can eventually move on.
This is, I believe, the most recent case we've highlighted on our show. Talk about what that has been like to really run up dry on leads so quickly. Although I'm sure, nearly a year, it feels like a long time for you all working the case. But how did we get to this place?
Well, like I kind of briefly touched on a minute ago, the crime scene location doesn't give us a lot of advantages. Sometimes if it happens on 6th Street downtown, a lot of camera coverage. A lot of crowd saturation. It's well lit. Usually a lot of witnesses. And this one, it was very, very dark back there. There were 0 lights. We actually had to import our own lights back there just to work the crime scene. And at that time of night, it was about 11:30 at night. Most of the people that were occupying that area were asleep. So even if they heard something, they were typically in their tents, just kind of closed off and weren't really able to provide witness or suspect information. So we didn't have a lot to go on to begin with, and that can be really, really challenging when it comes to trying to find a solution for this offense.
We know that shortly after that encampment was actually cleared out. I imagine that makes things even more complicated to not be able to go back to the scene of the crime.
Yes, during this investigation, we had learned that the city had actually had this encampment scheduled to get cleaned out at some point. So we were in contact with the city to give us some more time to be able to process the scene and talk to any witnesses before anybody happened to move away.
I think the nature of this investigation, though, it's apparent that folks who were witnesses might be transient or move around. What has that been like trying to follow up with folks? I imagine that presents another barrier to following up on this case.
I think that's been probably one of the biggest issues that we've had is even with this incident occurring and even with the camp clean out, people have moved to different parts of the city. So it's been hard to try to track people down and try to do like a follow-up interview. We did as many interviews as we possibly could the night that it happened and following days. But then if more questions come up, we want to be able to find these people to be able to conduct further interviews.
And sometimes, to add to that people will be reluctant to talk to us initially, out of fear. It's a very, very tragic and traumatic event. But eventually, after a few months or so, if they've calmed down a bit, they may be a little more inclined to provide a full interview. And again, with displacement, it's very, very difficult to track people down.
What is that like as a officer, a detective, trying to build some of that trust in any case, but particularly this one where witnesses are afraid and, like you said, maybe really reticent to come forward and put their name on a report?
Well, we tried different approaches. Obviously, we like to walk out there and go face to face with people, and a lot of times you can kind of calm people down just through conversation, and we let them know up front, hey, we're not here for any other offenses. We're just trying to figure out who killed your friend, right? Another approach that we'll take is, I know Randy had printed out just a whole bunch of flyers. So immediately, I think the day after we started that, we started putting flyers up. So with QR codes and anonymous avenues that they can provide information with, hoping that if they don't want to talk to us, at least maybe they can at least get the information to us.
Would it be fair to say that you've run down every lead in this case? Are there any viable leads right now?
I think we have come to a point to where we have investigated every lead that we possibly have. So that's where we are wanting some more help, the public's assistance to be able to get further leads so we can keep working this case and track those leads down too.
If people are at home and they're listening to this and maybe they lived in that area or know someone who's aware, is there anything in particular you're looking for, or what would you ask of the public? What do you want them to know?
Just that we're here. We don't care what kind of tip comes in, what kind of information that they have. When you get to this point in an investigation, every little detail, every little piece of new information will help, right? This occurred in a remote area right off of Runberg, but right behind it are some houses, and we did our best to canvass that area, and we tried to contact every resident there, but we'd love the public to maybe start digging alone, into any video camera systems we may have missed. If they recall that night, if they saw anyone running through, any vehicles that shouldn't have been there, things at the time that they may thought of, hey, that's not important, right? But to us, it could be. It could be.
I want to circle back. You mentioned her boyfriend. Is he, still in touch with the folks who are investigating this case? Is there anything you can offer as far as It must have been such a terrifying moment for him, and to still not have an answer as to what happened that night.
We have been in contact with her boyfriend. Unfortunately, sometimes you lose contact with people as far as moving away to a different location, and just trying to be able to find the boyfriend again, to be able to talk to him one more time.
So that is someone you'd like to reconnect with in this case. What does it look like? I know you all mentioned working with the city and different offices about the camp itself, but do you all frequently work with folks who are providing resources to the unhoused population, city partners in that way?
I don't know who Randy's reached out to recently on that. We have reached out on occasion to the constable's office. I know a lot of times they roll through these encampments, and they have a lot more contact with some of the occupants there than we do. And in the past we've had pretty good success with locating people using that route. I personally, in this case, haven't reached out to, any food resources or things like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even trying to reach out with city contacts. Like I was saying, one of the most difficult things is being able to reconnect with some of these people. It's been difficult, so that's been a big obstacle for us.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want people at home to know about this case? And my last real question for you too is, we mentioned how you described Gabrielle. Anything you want people to know about her, anything from her family? We just want to make sure we're focusing on her in this case as well.
Yeah, Gabrielle was 20 years old. She had a whole life in front of her, and tragically her life was taken. Like I mentioned before, everyone that had come into contact with Gabrielle had positive things to say about her, and she just brought a light into their lives. And like I said, we would just love to bring some sort of closure for the family and give them the answers that they deserve.
Yeah, and for those that don't know her, she went by Little Bit. Everybody called her Little Bit. So if you don't know her as Gabrielle, and if you have any information on Little Bit, then please let us know.
Thank you both so much for coming here and for trying to shine a light on her case. We really appreciate it, and we hope that folks see this and are able to come forward and share some information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us next week on KXAN Plus for another episode of Unsolved Central Texas. New episodes air every Thursday at 1. And watch any episode anytime. Just go to KXAN.com or look for the KXAN Plus Originals category on our streaming app. We'll see you next week.